The alarm started as a soft beep. Then it grew louder and faster until it filled the entire control room with its urgent sound. Chief Engineer H lifted her crystal head from the main computer screen. Her body was made of living crystal that changed colors when she felt different emotions. Right now, those crystals were turning a deep red color that meant danger. "What is happening?" asked Commander L. He was tall and thin with blue skin and 4 arms. Each of his arms was typing on different computer keyboards at the same time. H's crystals flickered as she read the data. The gravity ring is failing. The computer shows that the main rotation system is breaking down. The gravity ring was the most important part of the space station called Convergence Point. It was a huge metal circle that spun around the station like a giant wheel. When it spun, it created fake gravity so that all the different alien species could walk around normally instead of floating in space. Dr. N looked up from his science station. He was which meant he looked like a large purple octopus with 12 tentacles. His people were known across the galaxy for being very smart. "How bad is the damage?" he asked. H's crystals turned even darker red. "Very bad. The computer says we have less than 4 hours before the whole ring breaks apart. If that happens, the pieces will destroy the station." The control room became very quiet. All the different aliens looked at each other with worry. There were 6 different species working on the station, and they had never faced a problem this serious before. They were the first to speak. These aliens looked like tall, thin cats that walked on 2 legs. They were famous for being very good at math and planning. "We need to evacuate the station immediately," said Science Officer. "Our calculations show that any repair work would be impossible while the ring is still spinning." The engineer agreed. Looked like large bears covered in metal scales. They were known for building the strongest machines in the galaxy. "The forces inside that ring would crush any living thing," he said in his deep voice. "Even our strongest robots could not survive in there." Commander L began typing evacuation orders on his computers. "I will contact all ships in the area. We need to get everyone off this station before the ring destroys itself." But there was one person in the room who had not said anything yet. Jake sat at a small workstation in the corner. He was the only human on the station. Most of the aliens did not pay much attention to him because humans were still new to space travel. They thought humans were not as smart or advanced as the other species. Jake was looking at the gravity ring's design plans on his computer screen. He was a maintenance worker, which meant his job was to fix small problems around the station. But he had always been curious about how things worked, so he spent his free time learning about the station's systems. While the aliens talked about evacuation, Jake studied the computer data about the ring's problems. The other species used very advanced computers to analyze everything, but Jake preferred to look at problems in a simpler way. "Wait," Jake said quietly. The aliens did not hear him at first because they were all talking at once about evacuation plans. "Wait," Jake said louder. This time everyone stopped talking and looked at him. H's crystals flickered with surprise. It was unusual for the human to interrupt their meetings. "I think I see the problem," Jake said. He stood up and walked over to the main display screen. "Look at this pattern in the vibration data." Dr. N's tentacles moved quickly as he brought up the information Jake was pointing at. "I do not understand. The computer analyzed this data and found only random system failures." Jake pointed to a section of the screen. "It's not random. See how the vibrations happen every 47 seconds. That means one specific part is broken, not the whole system." The officer checked his own computer. The human is correct about the timing pattern, but how did he notice this when our advanced analysis systems did not? Jake shrugged. "Sometimes you have to look at the big picture instead of all the small details. This pattern tells me that one of the magnetic bearings is stuck. That's what's causing all the shaking." Commander L's forearm stopped typing. Even if you are right, it does not matter. No one can reach that bearing while the ring is spinning. The rotation creates too much dangerous force. The electromagnetic fields would also damage any electronic equipment, added the engineer. Even if someone could survive the physical forces, they would be blind and deaf in there. H's crystals had changed to yellow, which meant she was thinking hard. The human's observation is interesting, but the repair is still impossible. We should continue with the evacuation. Jake looked at all of them. These aliens were much smarter than humans in many ways. They had computers that could solve problems humans could not even understand. They had technology that seemed like magic. But sometimes, Jake thought, being too smart could make simple problems seem harder than they really were. What if someone could fix it? Jake asked. Dr. N's tentacles waved in what humans would call laughter. My friend, the computer calculates that any living being entering that ring would die in seconds. The rotation would tear apart even our strongest species. And even if someone could survive, added, they would need to work with perfect timing while being spun around and blinded by magnetic fields. Our computers say this is statistically impossible. Jake nodded slowly. He understood why they thought it was impossible. From their point of view, with all their advanced science and computer calculations, it really did seem impossible. But Jake had grown up fixing old machines with his grandfather. He had learned that sometimes machines just needed someone to listen to them and understand what they were trying to say. Computers were very good at measuring things, but they were not always good at understanding things. I understand, Jake said finally. You should start the evacuation preparations. The aliens began working on their evacuation plans, but Jake stayed at his workstation, still looking at the gravity ring's blueprints. He was thinking about something his grandfather had once told him. Sometimes, boy, you got to feel your way through a problem. 2 hours had passed since the first alarm. The evacuation was going slowly because there were not many ships nearby to rescue everyone. Commander L was getting frustrated as his forearms typed messages to distant rescue vessels. The closest ship is still 6 hours away, he announced to the control room. We need more time. H's crystals were now flashing between red and orange, showing her stress. The ring's condition is getting worse. The vibrations are stronger now. We might have less time than we thought. Dr. N was using all 12 of his tentacles to operate different computers at once. He was trying to find any solution that might slow down the ring's breakdown. I have run every possible calculation, he said sadly. There is no way to stop this failure from the outside. The other aliens in the room were working frantically on evacuation plans. They were calculating which people should leave first. There was checking which equipment could be saved. Everyone was very busy and very worried. Except for Jake. The human was still sitting at his small workstation, but he was not looking at evacuation plans. Instead, he was studying detailed maps of the gravity ring's interior. He had pulled up old maintenance records and was reading about every repair that had ever been done inside the ring. Finally, Jake stood up and walked to the center of the room. I can fix this, he said in a clear, calm voice. All the aliens stopped what they were doing and looked at him. For a moment, the room was completely silent except for the humming of computers and the distant vibration of the failing gravity ring. Commander L was the first to speak. Jake, we appreciate your willingness to help, but this is not a simple maintenance problem. This requires advanced engineering beyond. He paused, trying to be polite. Beyond what humans can do, Jake finished for him. H's crystals turned a soft blue, which meant she was feeling sad. Jake, we do not mean to insult you, but look at the facts. The gravity ring rotates at 2.3 turns per minute. The forces inside would crush most living things instantly. Dr. N added more details. The electromagnetic fields are so strong they would disrupt your nervous system. Your brain would stop working properly within minutes. Pulled up Jake's personnel file on the main screen. According to our records, you have basic technical training but no advanced degrees. You have normal human strength and reflexes. Our computers calculate your survival chance inside that ring as less than 0.001%. The engineer shook his large head. Even if you could somehow survive, the access panels require timing that is perfect to the millisecond. Our best computers can barely calculate the right moments to open them. Jake listened to all of this without arguing. He understood their concerns. Everything they said was true based on how their species thought about problems. They used computers to calculate every possibility. They planned everything carefully before taking action. It was a good way to solve problems, and it had made them successful across the galaxy. But humans had learned to solve problems differently. "You're right about all of that," Jake said. "Your computers are much better than human brains at calculating exact numbers, and your species are stronger and faster than humans." The aliens looked confused. If Jake agreed with them, why was he still volunteering? Jake continued, "But there's something your computers might not be measuring." "What do you mean?" asked Dr. N. "Your computers are trying to calculate exact movements and perfect timing. But what if exact isn't necessary? What if the ring itself can tell me what to do?" H's crystals flickered with confusion. "Jake, machines do not communicate. They do not tell us anything." "They don't talk with words," Jake agreed. "But they tell us things in other ways, through sounds, vibrations, the way they move. My grandfather taught me to listen to machines when I was young." The officer checked his computer again. "Our sensors do not show any communication signals from the gravity ring." Jake smiled. "That's because you're listening with computers. Sometimes you have to listen with your body instead." This concept seemed very strange to all the aliens. Their species had developed amazing technology by using logic and precise measurements. The idea of using feelings or intuition to solve technical problems was something their computers could not understand. Commander L tried to explain the situation more clearly. "Jake, even if we accepted your unusual approach, the physical dangers remain. The rotation would throw you against the walls with deadly force." "Unless I move with the rotation instead of against it," Jake replied. "That is impossible to calculate," said the forces change constantly as the ring spins." "So I'll change with them," Jake said simply. Dr. N's tentacles waved frantically as he tried to understand. "But how can you predict what changes to make without computer assistance?" "The same way humans learn to ride bicycles or catch flying balls," Jake explained. "We don't calculate the exact physics. We feel what's happening and adjust." The aliens exchanged looks that humans would recognize as complete confusion. Their universal translators were working perfectly, so they understood Jake's words. But the concepts he was describing were totally alien to their way of thinking. H spoke very gently. "Jake, what you are describing sounds like magic, not science." "Maybe," Jake said, "but it works. Humans have been fixing complicated things for thousands of years without computers. We learned to work with our hands and trust our instincts." Pulled up more data. Our analysis of human capabilities shows average strength, average intelligence, and average reflexes compared to other species. What you are suggesting requires above-average everything. Jake thought about this. "You might be measuring the wrong things," he said finally. "Maybe human advantages aren't the kind that show up on your tests." Commander L looked at the time display. They had less than 2 hours left before the ring failed completely. The nearest rescue ship was still hours away. He was responsible for everyone on the station, including Jake. "I cannot allow you to attempt this," he said firmly. "It would be sending you to certain death." Jake nodded. "I understand. You're responsible for keeping everyone safe, and this seems impossible based on what your computers tell you." "Exactly," said Dr. N. "We must follow logical protocols." Jake looked around the room at all these intelligent, advanced beings. They had technology that could travel between stars and create artificial gravity. They had solved problems that humans could barely imagine. But sometimes, he thought, the most advanced solution wasn't the right solution. "What if it's not impossible?" Jake asked quietly. "What if your computers just can't measure the things that would make it possible?" The question hung in the air as alarms continued beeping, and the gravity ring continued its dangerous vibrations. 30 minutes later, Jake stood in the equipment room putting on a basic maintenance suit. The arguing had continued for a long time, but finally Commander L had agreed to let Jake try. The commander had decided that certain death from the ring's collapse was worse than a small chance of survival through Jake's plan. The maintenance suit was not designed for the dangerous environment inside the gravity ring. It was just a simple outfit that protected maintenance workers from small electrical shocks and minor hazards. Jake checked all the connections and tested the communication system. "Jake, are you certain about this?" H asked through the radio. Her crystals were now pure white, which meant she was very frightened. "As certain as anyone can be about something like this," Jake replied. He picked up a basic tool kit and attached it to his belt. In the control room, all the aliens were watching multiple screens that showed Jake's location and vital signs. Dr. N had every sensor on the station focused on the gravity ring's interior. "His heart rate is elevated but normal," reported the scientist. "Brain activity shows he is alert but not panicked." Commander L was tracking Jake's position as he walked toward the gravity ring's access tunnel. "Jake, remember that once you enter the ring, our communication may be interrupted by electromagnetic interference." "I understand," Jake said. He reached the heavy door that led into the ring's maintenance corridor. The door had warning signs in 12 different alien languages, all saying the same thing: "Danger, no entry during rotation." Jake opened the door and stepped inside. Immediately, the world changed. The corridor was spinning along with the ring, but from Jake's perspective, it felt like he was standing still while the universe rotated around him. The sound was overwhelming, a deep humming mixed with mechanical noises and vibrations that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Jake, can you hear us?" Commander L's voice came through the radio, but it was broken and full of static. "I can hear you, but barely," Jake replied. "The interference is strong." In the control room, the aliens watched their sensors with amazement. Jake was moving through the corridor, but not the way their computers had predicted. Instead of fighting against the rotation, he seemed to be working with it. "Look at this," Dr. N said, pointing at the motion sensors. "He is using the spin to help him move forward. How is he calculating the momentum transfers?" "Checked his mathematical models. According to our physics calculations, he should be thrown against the wall by centrifugal force." But Jake was not being thrown anywhere. He moved through the spinning corridor like he had been doing it his whole life. When he needed to change direction, he used the rotation to help him turn. When he needed to stop, he let the spin carry him to where he wanted to go. "This is impossible," whispered the engineer. "Our best robots cannot navigate that environment." Jake's voice came through the radio again, very faint. "I can hear the problem now. The bearing is definitely stuck. The sound is wrong." "What sound?" asked Dr. N. "Our audio sensors are not picking up any specific bearing noise." "It's not loud," Jake explained as he moved deeper into the ring. "But it's there, like a car engine that's running rough." The aliens did not understand the car engine reference, but they could see Jake moving with increasing confidence. Their sensors showed him navigating past obstacles and through narrow passages that their computers said were too dangerous to attempt. "His electromagnetic exposure should be causing neural disruption by now," Dr. reported, but his brain patterns remain normal. Commander L was studying the structural maps. Jake, you are approaching the primary bearing assembly. The electromagnetic field strength there is beyond safe limits for any known species. Jake's reply was even fainter now. Getting harder to think clearly, but I can still feel what's happening. On the sensors, the aliens watched Jake reach the most dangerous part of the gravity ring. This was where the main magnetic bearings held the massive structure in place while it spun. The electromagnetic fields here were so strong that they interfered with electronic equipment and disrupted biological nervous systems. But Jake kept moving. How is he functioning? H asked. Her crystals were flashing rapidly with confusion. Our computers predict complete neural shutdown in that environment. Jake was now working by touch and sound rather than sight. His suit's electronic systems were barely working, and the spinning motion made it hard to see clearly. But his grandfather had taught him to work on machines in dark places, feeling his way through problems when he could not see what he was doing. Found the bearing housing, Jake reported. His voice was very weak now. Definitely seized up. I can feel the heat from the friction. In the control room, Dr. N was recording everything. This is remarkable. He is diagnosing mechanical problems through tactile feedback alone, while experiencing electromagnetic interference that would disable our most advanced diagnostic equipment. Jake began working on the bearing assembly. The aliens watched their sensors as he removed access panels and reached into the mechanical systems. What they saw their understanding of engineering procedures. He is not following any standard repair protocol, observed, yet his actions appear purposeful and effective. Jake worked without computer guidance or detailed instructions. Instead, he listened to the sounds the machinery made and felt how the vibrations changed when he adjusted different components. When one approach did not work, he tried another, learning from each attempt. The electromagnetic interference should make precise work impossible, commented the. How is he maintaining accuracy without sensor feedback? But Jake was not trying to be precise in the way the aliens understood precision. Instead of measuring exact distances and angles, he was feeling for the right fit and listening for the right sounds. His hands told him when parts were aligned correctly, and his ears told him when the machinery was running smoothly. I think I found the problem, Jake said. One of the magnetic elements has shifted position. That's causing the binding. Can you repair it? Commander L asked. There was a long pause before Jake answered. Maybe, but I'll need to stop the ring completely to fix it properly. The silence in the control room was absolute. Stop the gravity ring. While people were still on the station, it seemed impossible and incredibly dangerous. Jake, Dr. N said carefully, stopping the rotation would require evacuating half the station. The structural stress could cause catastrophic damage. I know, Jake replied, but if I don't fix it, the whole ring will tear itself apart anyway. Commander L looked at the time display. They had less than 1 hour before the ring's predicted failure. The rescue ships were still hours away. What exactly are you proposing? He asked. Jake's voice was getting weaker, but his determination was clear. I'm going to manually break the ring using its own momentum. It's risky, but I think it will work. The aliens looked at each other with expressions that humans would recognize as terror mixed with disbelief. Jake was proposing to do something that their most advanced computers considered impossible. The control room was filled with tension as Jake prepared to do something that every computer on the station said was impossible. Commander L had his 4 hands ready to sound the evacuation alarm at the first sign of disaster. Jake, explain exactly what you plan to do, Dr. N said into the radio. His 12 tentacles were operating every sensor they had, trying to monitor Jake's condition and the ring's status. Jake's voice came back very weak and broken by interference. The ring has natural breaking points, where the rotation creates counterforces if I can. Disconnect the right sections. At the right time, the momentum will slow itself down. Quickly ran calculations on his computer. That is theoretically possible, but the timing would need to be perfect to the millisecond. One mistake would cause the ring to tear itself apart even faster. Our computers cannot calculate the exact timing, added the engineer. There are too many variables changing in real time. That's why computers can't do it, Jake replied. But I can feel when the forces are balanced. H's crystals turned bright orange with worry. Jake, if you make a mistake, the ring will break apart and destroy the station. Everyone will die. If I don't try, everyone dies anyway, Jake said simply. Commander L made a difficult decision. All personnel prepare for emergency procedures. Jake, you have permission to attempt the manual braking. What happened next would be remembered by every alien on the station for the rest of their lives. Jake began disconnecting sections of the gravity ring while it was still spinning. This required him to time his actions perfectly with the rotation, feeling for the exact moments when the mechanical stress was balanced. He could not see what he was doing clearly because of the electromagnetic interference, and he could not use computer guidance because the fields disrupted all electronic equipment. But somehow he knew when to act. In the control room, the aliens watched their sensors with growing amazement and terror. Jake was manually operating controls that were designed to be handled by advanced computers during controlled shutdown procedures. Yet he was doing it by instinct, feeling his way through the process. Section 7 disconnected, Jake reported. The ring's vibration pattern changed slightly. Structural stress is shifting, Doctor announced, but it's within acceptable limits. Jake continued working. Section 12 now. The aliens could feel the station begin to shudder as the massive gravity ring started to slow down. Warning lights flashed throughout the station as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Ring rotation decreasing, reported. Current speed is 2.1 revolutions per minute. Section 18, disconnecting now. The shuddering grew stronger. In the residential areas of the station, aliens were holding onto furniture as the gravity became unsteady. Some were floating as the artificial gravity failed in certain sections. Emergency crews report panic in sectors 4 through 9, Commander L announced. Some personnel are requesting immediate evacuation. Ring speed now 1.8 revolutions per minute, updated. The braking is working, but the structural stress is increasing. Jake's voice was getting weaker, but he kept working. Section 23, wait, not yet, now. The station shook so hard that some of the aliens in the control room had to hold onto their workstations. Alarms were sounding throughout the facility. Critical stress levels in the ring support structure, warned the. We are approaching the point where the ring could break free from the station. Jake, you need to stop the braking process, Commander L ordered. The station cannot handle much more of this. Almost there, Jake replied. Just 2 more sections. Dr. N was watching the electromagnetic readings. Jake's life signs are becoming erratic. The field exposure is affecting his nervous system. Ring speed 1.2 revolutions per minute, reported. Section 29, now. The station shook violently. In the control room, H's crystals were flashing rapid warning colors as her workstation sparked from electrical overload. Station structural integrity at 78%, they announced. We cannot survive much more damage. Last section, Jake said, his voice barely audible. Section 35, wait for it, wait. All the aliens held their breath. If Jake mistimed this last disconnection, the ring would either tear itself apart or break free from the station entirely. Now, the final section disconnected. For a moment the station continued shaking as the massive ring slowly ground to a stop. Then, gradually, The vibrations decreased. The alarms continued wailing, but the dangerous shuddering was ending. Ring rotation, 0, announced with disbelief. The gravity ring has stopped completely. The control room fell silent except for the sound of alarms and emergency announcements from other parts of the station. No one could believe what had just happened. Jake had manually stopped a massive rotating structure using only his instincts and basic tools. "Jake, report your status," Commander L called into the radio. There was no response. "Jake, can you hear us?" Still nothing. Dr. N checked his sensors. "I'm detecting his vital signs, but they're very weak. The electromagnetic exposure has been severe." "Jake," H called desperately. Finally, Jake's voice came through the radio, barely a whisper. "I'm okay, just need a moment. The ring is stopped. I can access the broken bearing now." In the control room, the aliens looked at each other with expressions of wonder and disbelief. Jake had done something that their computers said was impossible. He had stopped the gravity ring safely, saving the station and everyone on it. But the job was not finished yet. The ring was stopped, but the broken bearing still needed to be repaired. And Jake was alone in the electromagnetic maze of the ring's interior, weakened by exposure but determined to complete the task. "Beginning repair work," Jake announced. "Should take about 20 minutes. 20 minutes to replace a bearing that would normally require a team of engineers and specialized equipment." But after what they had just witnessed, none of the aliens doubted that Jake could do it. They had learned something important about humans that day. Sometimes the most advanced technology was not the best solution. Sometimes what was needed was the kind of intelligence that could not be measured by computers, the ability to feel, to adapt, and to trust instincts that had been developed over thousands of years of solving problems with their hands. The next 20 minutes felt like hours to everyone in the control room. Jake worked alone inside the gravity ring while the aliens monitored every sensor they had. His life signs were weak but steady, and occasionally they could hear him talking to himself as he worked. "Bearing housing is clear," Jake reported. "The magnetic element definitely shifted position. I can see the wear marks where it was rubbing." Dr. N was recording everything for his research files. "Jake, how are you determining the correct positioning without measurement tools?" "The wear marks show me where it's supposed to sit," Jake explained. "And I can feel when the magnetic fields align properly." Shook his head in amazement. He is performing precision engineering work using only visual inspection and tactile feedback. Our technicians require laser measurement tools for that level of accuracy. Jake continued working steadily. The aliens could hear him using basic tools to clean and adjust the bearing assembly. Sometimes he would stop and listen to the machinery, as if the metal parts were telling him something important. "Jake, what are you listening for?" H asked. Her crystals had changed to yellow, showing curiosity instead of fear. "The bearing has to sit exactly right, or it will make noise when the ring spins up," Jake explained. "Each piece of metal has its own sound when it fits properly." Commander Al was fascinated despite his worry. "How can you hear such small differences?" "My grandfather taught me," Jake said as he worked. "He used to say that machines want to work correctly. They tell you when something is wrong, but you have to know how to listen." The engineer was studying the sensor data. "Our equipment shows perfect alignment, but only after Jake made adjustments that our computers did not recommend." "Finished with the bearing," Jake announced. "Now I need to reconnect all the sections in reverse order and spin the ring back up." This was another moment of high tension. Starting the ring was just as dangerous as stopping it had been. If the sections were reconnected in the wrong sequence or at the wrong time, the ring could destroy itself during startup. "Jake, our computers have calculated the optimal restart sequence," Dr. N offered. "Thanks, but I need to do this the same way I stopped it," Jake replied, "by feeling when the forces are balanced." Jake began the restart process. One by one, he reconnected the sections he had disconnected. The aliens watched their sensors as the ring slowly began to spin again. Unlike the shutdown, which had been violent and dangerous, the startup was smooth and controlled. Section 35 connected. Ring speed 0.2 revolutions per minute, Jake reported. Structural stress is minimal, the confirmed. Much better than our computer projections suggested. Jake continued the careful process. Section 29, now. With each reconnection, the ring spun faster and the artificial gravity became more stable. People throughout the station began to feel normal gravity returning to their areas. Section 18 connected. Ring speed 1.1 revolutions per minute. Commander Al was monitoring station-wide communications. All sectors report gravity is stabilizing. No signs of structural damage from the shutdown. Section 7, last one, Jake announced. The final connection completed the restart sequence. The gravity ring was now spinning at its normal speed, creating perfect artificial gravity throughout the station. All the dangerous vibrations were gone. Ring speed 2.3 revolutions per minute, reported. All systems nominal. There was a moment of complete silence in the control room as everyone realized what had happened. Jake had not only stopped a failing gravity ring and repaired it, but he had done it all manually while everyone else thought it was impossible. "Jake, please report your status," Doctorin called. "I'm fine," Jake replied, though his voice was still weak from electromagnetic exposure. "Just tired. The bearing is working perfectly now. You shouldn't have any more problems." "Outstanding work," Commander Al said. "Return to the control room for medical evaluation." "On my way," Jake said. 30 minutes later, Jake emerged from the gravity ring's access tunnel. He looked tired and his maintenance suit was covered with grease stains, but he was smiling. The aliens gathered around him, all talking at once with excitement and amazement. "How did you know the exact timing for the shutdown sequence?" asked. "How did you align the bearing without measurement tools?" Doctor wanted to know. "How did you function normally in electromagnetic fields that should have disrupted your nervous system?" H added. Jake sat down heavily in a chair and thought about their questions. "I'm not sure I can explain it in a way that makes sense to you. Humans learn to solve problems by doing them over and over until we develop a feel for what works." "But you had never stopped a gravity ring before," the pointed out. "No, but I've worked on lots of rotating machinery," Jake said. "Engines, generators, turbines, they all work on similar principles. Once you understand how rotation and momentum work, you can apply that knowledge to new situations." Dr. was taking extensive notes. "You are describing a form of pattern recognition that operates below conscious awareness. Your brain was applying previous experience to a new situation without conscious calculation." "I guess so," Jake agreed. "My grandfather called it mechanical intuition, the ability to understand how machines work by paying attention to all the small details your senses pick up." Commander Al was thinking about the implications of what had happened. "Jake, our species have always believed that advanced technology requires precise calculation and computer assistance. But you solved this problem using methods our computers cannot measure or duplicate." H's crystals were now a bright blue color that indicated deep thought. "Perhaps we have been measuring intelligence too narrowly. We focus on computational ability and logical reasoning, but Jake demonstrated a different kind of intelligence." "What kind?" asked. "Adaptive intelligence," H said. "The ability to understand complex systems through direct interaction rather than abstract analysis." Jake yawned and stretched. "I'm just glad everyone is safe. That was scarier than I let on." Dr. Tan looked up from his notes. "Jake, what you did today will change how our species think about problem solving and intelligence. We always assumed that the most advanced approach was the best approach. Sometimes it is, Jake said. Your technology is amazing and can do things humans can't even imagine, but sometimes a simple approach works better than a complicated one. Commander Al was already planning his report to headquarters. I will recommend that all station crews include personnel trained in intuitive engineering methods. What will you call it? Jake asked. The human approach, Commander Al replied. Over the following days, word of Jake's achievement spread throughout the galactic community. Scientists from dozens of species came to study what he had done. Engineers began developing new training programs that included hands-on experience and pattern recognition, alongside traditional computer-assisted methods. But Jake just went back to his regular maintenance duties. He was happy that he had helped save the station, but he did not think what he had done was particularly unusual. Humans had been solving problems with their hands and instincts for thousands of years. Sometimes, he thought as he fixed a minor electrical problem in a storage room, the most advanced civilizations could learn something from the simple approaches that seemed outdated. Intelligence was not just about having the best computers or the most precise measurements. Sometimes intelligence was about knowing when to trust your instincts and when to listen to what the machines were trying to tell you. The gravity ring continued